Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode on another Wednesday evening of Talk De Ting. Rajiv, what is the word?
Good evening, good night, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome back to Talk De Ting. So, we've been having a month of discussions with young business owners, people who've been brave enough to, go into the world of, owning their own business or working for themselves, which, is a lot braver than people like me. And we want to make sure
And
that
me.
we are and we want to make sure that we are pushing that positive content out there, just letting people know that there are many different avenues in which you could make money or you could build careers right out there. And we have very intelligent young man with us tonight. We're gonna go into a little bit of what he's been up to, right? Some groundbreaking stuff that he's pushing in Dominica. No, I'm thinking about it. I remember somebody talking to me about him and the business that he has a couple of months ago when I was in Dominica. So with no further ado, before we do that, I want to encourage everybody to share the
Share the
live, and I'm
live,
gonna
share the
sh-
links,
yeah, man,
subscribe.
share the live and share us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and and all the good stuff. All right. With no further ado, excuse me, I want to bring on our guest tonight, Mr. Tony Edwards. How you doing, man?
Hey, good night, man. I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me up here, Dwayne and Rajiv. So happy to dive into the business, happy to talk about what I've been doing, and yeah, let's just go ahead.
All right.
Anthony, good night, and again, thanks for joining us. Let's start off, with the usual introductions. Where you from, where you grew up, where you went to school. As usually that's the baseline where we all kind of establish some kind of common ground.
All right, no worries, man. Sounds great. You can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm from Dominica, grew up around Roseau. That's how I met Rajiv. Well, I guess it must have been about college times we met up, right? Or well, no, even before that, high school
Before that.
times. Yes, I went to grammar school. Before that, I went to convent prep. I've always been around Roseau. Lived in Castle Comfort. My parents are from the Northeast, Margaret and Wesley. And yeah, just like a Dominican guy, I've been into tech in various, you know, to various degrees for the large part of my life. And yeah, I mean, I started getting deeper into tech even when I was in high school. And yeah, it's kind of, ended up being my full profession. So, yeah, so I mean, not sure if you want to dig into any parts of how I grew up specifically.
Well, so what's you touch on the profession? What's your title? What would you say Anthony Edwards is?
So I'm a tech entrepreneur, and in my business, I'm a co-founder of the business. So I co-own it with my business partner, Gandhi Robin. But yeah, that's what I am. I'm a tech entrepreneur, and that means something. Like I think people throw around actually both parts of that title a lot. But the thing is, tech meaning that from a purely technical standpoint, what I do is I build software. I'm trained as a software engineer. So that's the tech part of that. And the entrepreneur part of that is I'm not like someone who is just hired to build websites in a business or something. I use those tech skills to solve problems. Um, so, problem solution, right? Like uh, that's what entrepreneurs do. They look for problems and they develop solutions. It might be developing by building something from scratch, like we do, but the more common thing is you might reuse something that's used in other parts of the world. You might import something. All of that is entrepreneurship, but that's what it is. The tech part, meaning what I can do tangibly is create software solutions, and the entrepreneur part, meaning what I do with that those skills is solve real world problems.
So those two things are skills that you would have honed over time from being
Definitely.
in different places, different types of schooling. So you said you went to Dominica Grammar School. Talk us through the journey from tertiary maybe towards the first job, the first tech position or the first position that kind of, you know, rocketed your journey.
Absolutely. So with tertiary as like DSC or grammar school, because you mentioned grammar school,
We can go from DSC to grammar school, wherever you feel your story starts the most interesting,
was key.
whatever you like to tell.
Yeah, man, no worries. So, I mean, one part of the story I like to tell is that the reason, like me getting into tech, actually starts all the way back in primary school. So, what happened is, as a young kid, um, I got really into games. So, I was the biggest Pokemon nerd, you know, like the biggest man.
Toto and Kanto.
Yo, trust me. Want to be the very best. But like yeah, no, I was really really into that stuff, and then I got into it to the point that I wanted to make the games. So all the way back in primary school, I would end up playing around with pieces of paper and making mazes and so on, trying to emulate that. And then by the time I was in grammar school, so high school, we're talking 12, 11 to 16. Um,
16.
I I learned that the way I would do that is through developing software. So that's actually what got me into software. So I jumped at the chance to start learning software by third form when I was like 14 or so. That's 20 years back now. And yeah, so I jumped into the computer science lab with a couple of the guys and actually made my first games there. Like I made a kind of really basic sort of fighting game, and I had the whole class playing it. Like
Wow.
What was that? What was that first language? C? Was it C or it was Turbo Pascal?
back then it was still Pascal.
Pascal.
I have no idea why they were teaching us Turbo Pascal, man. But yeah, but Turbo Pascal is the first language I learned. And basically, yeah, so that was me out of high school. I put all my energy into the computer science stuff. I was still very into games, but the coding was something that was more than just uh, um, a subject to me because I was so into the gaming, so into the ability to create games, the ability to manipulate the software. So I'd actually spend my some of my weekends like this, just trying out stuff, or like I said, like building full scale programs like that game because that's not something you do in class. And yeah, that's like where my tech journey starts. And then like everyone else, I left grammar school at CXC around 16, and then I jumped into DSC, like the people that go that academic route. Um, but DSC wasn't offering computer science. So actually, for those 2 years, I didn't do any development in my tech, but it is still a pretty important part of the story because that's the first time I did social science and I did economics. I did math, econ, and physics
Wow.
in lieu of computer science
Computer
because I just wanted
science.
to get as close as possible. But doing econ was by far the most important kind of
Mm.
study I'd done at that time. So that kind of pushed me. Maybe I would have gone a kind of traditional, more nerdy, like just straight up, I'm a software engineer kind of direction. Um, but doing econ really helped me kind of start to think of the forces at play in the market, in the world around us, how things work, demand, supply, etc. One part I haven't mentioned yet is around high school when I really started getting into this gaming stuff. It had already stopped being I want to make games and started being I want to have a software company slash a gaming company.
Mm.
So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
Me and
Oh,
my friends.
you had big plans, boy. Wow.
Also,
Yeah. It was something I think, like, unlike a lot of people I've interacted with, like, the direction started pretty early, and I guess in a way that kind of gave me a head start, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Should
so
I? I don't wanna. I don't wanna. I don't like to drone on for too long. So are
so
you
we
okay?
live so,
You want
so
to
Dominica State College,
wait?
and you have some very interesting parts in the journey.
Yeah.
Self-taught, foreign experience. How did we
Foreign
get on
experience
those?
from where?
Or we get onto those. Yeah. No worries. So that's, I guess, what I said so far is like really my, the very very beginning. Yeah. So basically, I did those subjects at DSC, and econ was quite useful. Like I said, for just thinking, like stopping just being a tech person and started being someone that could apply tech to the world. Then I jumped into the bank. But while I was at the bank, my dad gave me some really good advice. He was like, so that was my first job at NBD. But he was like, yeah, it's not a bad job, but you shouldn't just be sitting down there. Like you need to still be investing in yourself. So so again, I did something that's not too common, which is I just started my studies immediately. So the next 4 years were me working at NBD while actually pursuing a bachelor's degree in computing and information systems. So I did that with the University of London, and I did that completely by distance. I still actually
Oh
haven't
wow.
still haven't been to the campus.
So why that decision? Because usually out of college, I know personally for me, if I wanted to leave, I was ready to go. I wanted to be somewhere else, see something different. Considering the heights of your dreams, how come that was the approach that you took? Was there any particular reason?
Well, I mean, I didn't get the island scholarship. Um, like I got some good grades at A level, but if I had to go to the States or the UK or something, it would have been paid for out of pocket by my parents, which isn't a problem. But my parents had some really good advice for me as well on that front, and that was um, the ROI, the return on investment of your bachelor's degree isn't high.
Why?
So so
Wow.
they so they figured, like, if you can avoid, like, if you have to spend money on a degree, you should spend it on a master's degree, and just look at the bachelor's degree as a stepping stone to get into that master's degree. So because of that, basically the job at the bank was good enough for me to pay for my master's degree by distance, because it was a pretty, like, affordable one, compared to, like, I mean, I think overall I spent maybe 50,000 EC over 3 years. So we're talking no money compared to, like, what, sorry, 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no money compared to, like, what you can spend on your bachelor's degree. And yeah, like, so because of that, I'd already gotten the job. So it was just like, okay, you should do your bachelor's degree this way, pursue it in something that's going to put you on your path, but also meaning that, you don't have debt, and so you can invest in your master's degree shortly after. And that's actually what I ended up doing.
But
Boy.
something like that. Go ahead, doing.
Now I was gonna say, in that story there, I'm hearing a couple of things that really jumping out at me, right? So one, you had people in your life that were, supportive of what you wanted to do. That's one
Yeah,
thing. But also they were looking at, based on what you're saying, right? The conversation with your father or your family was not of like, the traditional conversation that we might hear in Dominica, right? They'll go to school, go study, make sure you do something. It's like, okay, yeah, you want to do that, but this is a good idea. This is and kind of giving you an explanation as to why, right? And you said you did econ and stuff, and I'm sure that kind of helped you, right, in terms of knowing because you said ROI, and some people might not even know what that
Yeah.
means, but return on investment,
for
right? And what you're
investment.
putting in and what you're gonna get out of what you're doing. So, it's really impressive so far, man. You sound like you had a good plan, and you sound like you took the advice that was gonna help you, which is kudos to you so far.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely had like really good parents of support. The whole, in fact, I still do. It's not like I'm still depending on my parents for lots of different things. But yeah, they absolutely helped me in those formative years make some key good decisions. I wouldn't say like, it's all Caribbean people, so it definitely wasn't, yeah, I don't think it would be too different from, the standard story, but um, yeah, like if only that my parents, they've both done, higher education. Both of them were teachers at a point too, so they could help in some pretty useful ways along the journey for sure.
So one thing I don't want to trivialize. It's just the level of discipline that's required to undertake what you undertook. And I want you to talk to us about that because you're a
Mhm.
young man who just left college, you get your
Yeah,
first
yeah.
job, and first time you see all that money in your life, you have money in your hand that is yours. Not your mother money, not your father's money. This is yours. And the ability to resist that temptation to, be by the bar every Friday, the discipline to study. Walk us through that. And was that a challenge? Was that something you already had? How did Tell us, when did it get easy, if it ever got easier, or was it always just very difficult?
So you're talking specifically about managing the funds or the work study stuff or both?
All of them. I think they all tie into one.
The all time, man.
Because if you wasn't managed,
And
if you were not managing the funds, you couldn't continue the studies.
Absolutely.
So
and
Yeah,
and, and the other thing too is like, again, when you're a young person, right? And we all been there. And I don't know if you travel when you were young, but like for me, I couldn't wait to one day leave Dominica and go see other parts of the world. So like your
yeah,
parents tell you, boy, you could go to University of London. You're like, I want to do it in London. It's like, we tell you, it's gonna cost £100,000 if you go
yeah,
there, or
yeah,
it's gonna cost
yeah.
50,000 EC if you stay in Dominica. It is discipline, right? For you to know, okay, ultimately I can end up there, but I don't want to, do that. So good.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I discipline is part of it, but there's also like practically, options, and then yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if discipline is the word. I wouldn't say I was the most disciplined person, but then I don't know, maybe the bar is different, right? I can tell you, really fund management. That's another place parents help. Like since I've been in primary school, my parents have basically been giving me. They started off giving us $1 for every test we got 100 on, both me and my sister, and then
No.
that would be our money. So like every year, like we would generally like save that, So maybe you get like you make a $200 or something every year from that, and like just save
Yeah.
that. Basically, since I've been a very, very, very small child, I've been managing money, and I feel like it's hard to quantify, but I do feel like a lot of those lessons have just made it easier to manage money. I mean, right now, like we manage over $100,000 of other people's money every month right now, So it's like I even at that point coming out of college, like the money side of it was just maths to me. It's like I was making it also really helped, like it wasn't hard because I was making a good enough salary at the bank. The bank starts you off at about 3,000 EC. And it's like I was living with my mom and my dad, so I didn't need much of that. And if you save enough of that, you can save up 10, 15,000 of that to pay your, your,
Yeah.
your for your stuff.
Intuition, right, right.
Yeah, so I did that, and it wasn't too hard, but it definitely helps that like I guess I'm pretty frugal, you know. I'm pretty frugal. Sometimes I joke with people. My girlfriend is the only person I know that spends money less than me.
That's all like a good girlfriend right there.
Yeah,
so
so
call it well meet.
Cheers. But so that wasn't hard. That like there was enough coming in, and it was just don't go crazy, don't like buy a big liability like a car or something, and it wouldn't be too difficult to save it up. The hard part was this work study thing. I don't know if either of you all have ever done this, but it is pretty difficult, for you to be doing a full-time job, 8 to 5, 8 to 4,
Yep.
and then when you get home, you do the studies at after 6, 7. So the same story that I've told you all there, like the less, I've always tried to pass those lessons on to basically as many people as I can. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
why I'm saying them right now. Like save the investment for your master's degree. A very easy way to do that is do the first degree by distance, that sort of stuff. But in practice, I've seen how hard it is for
Difficult.
most
Yep.
people I've recommended it to. It wasn't easy, but honestly, I mean, compared to the stuff I've done since, man, it wasn't the hardest thing.
I know
Yeah.
it look like light work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
frankly.
I can relate, bro. I've been there myself, working for both my bachelor's and my master's degree, working full time and doing
Yeah,
school. I know it's not
when you
it's
get
not
home,
easy,
you're tired.
boy. Right now it's like for me, like I didn't want to open a book, and do a certification or something is like, oh my god, more study now. Oh my god. I don't
Yeah,
want to, but anyway.
I'm done.
So so you had so what about I guess from doing a little research and finding out some stuff about you, right? You've done some travels, right? You've been to a few places. um what were some of the most valuable lessons you learned during the years of traveling and stuff like that you've taken back to Dominica?
That's a good question. That's an unusual question. Um, yeah, yeah. One of the the I think the most important lesson I've learned from traveling out to Dominica is that there is nothing that makes a white person from the US or the UK or another part of Europe or a Chinese person or a Middle Eastern person smarter than a Dominican person. And it's probably a silly thing to say, right?
It's not
But
silly
but
at
let me
all, trust me.
illustrate this for you. Let me illustrate this for you. So I remember, so when I was doing my bachelor's, the last year of my bachelor's was we had to do more or less a small dissertation, and the one of the hard things about doing it by distance is that you have very little contact with the university. Back then, there were less tools online. There definitely wasn't AI, so it was quite hard to teach myself the content. But then the dissertations were the only thing that were ranked across, this global network of people, as well as the people, within London that were doing it on site. And that was the first time I actually had like proper help from the university. Aside from that, they were just giving you a coursework. But then when the person from the university reviewed my dissertation, he told me that that was the best dissertation he had marked that year, right?
Hmm.
And I remember how I felt at that moment because back then I hadn't learned that lesson yet. And I had not, like, I just couldn't believe that people in the UK, that I could do something here in Dominica that might be better than what the people in the UK would do.
Right, right.
You haven't even left the island yet.
I hadn't left the island yet, but like that was the first kind of taste on that of that, and that it was like it comes against all this stuff that we're indoctrinated with in growing up here. Like what's left over from colonialism, the relationship we have with the states, like you all said, the pushes. You got to leave the island. You got to go to the US or the UK if you want to make something of yourself, right?
Hmm.
And I would say after I left and when I went to the UK, again, that's just like that's something that I kept learning. I kept learning that lesson over and over, and it kept being reinforced in different places, in different ways, because I would go into spaces and I would be among the best of the people that I was interacting with there.
Hmm.
Or they would be better at me at loads of other things, but within my discipline, it would be really good. And then, of course, getting into Oxford itself, right? Like and like that is a whole bunch of validation. And yeah, like I don't know if I had this more than the average person here, but I can tell you I definitely had this idea that as a Dominican person growing up in Dominica, I couldn't do anything of value to the rest of the world. And that was absolutely broken by my travels overseas, because frankly the people there just aren't, they're just not as, like, it's not that they're worse, but they're not like significantly better. They're just normal. They're
Yeah.
just like anyone you would run into in Roseau. And frankly, because parts of our system are so difficult, some of the people that thrive here, like my co-founder Gandhi Robin, or other entrepreneurs like JD's Naturals and so on, I'm more impressed by those people than like certain entrepreneurs I met in London,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
And you drop something there. I know Rajiv want to ask a question, but you drop something there. You just skip through it. You
Skip
can get it
through
into Oxford. Like
it.
like it's a regular thing. Every I can see a humility, man. But to be honest, I respect the hustle, man, because a lot of what you're saying is resonating with me. When I moved to the US, it's very similar when you start going to school and taking exams and stuff, and you're like, I remember the first time I always tell Rajiv and him a story when I went into one of my classes, and the lecturer said, "Oh, and you could bring in a cheat sheet," and I said, "Cheat sheet?" I said, "What is that?" Like I was so shocked because I going to school in Dominica, like
yeah,
they
yeah,
catch you with a napkin out of the class, like so, but and then people graduate, and you see people cheating in classes all the time, and people graduate and they have all these degrees with 4.0 GPAs, and then they go into a job and they have no idea what they're doing. So much respect, man. Rajiv, go ahead.
So let's talk about you know some stuff post your schooling. You have some pretty big roles outside of Dominica. I mean, you could touch a little bit on how you got there, but you were CTO, Chief Technical Officer at a company, um, Boresha Technologies. You also worked at Scape, one of which was acquired by Facebook,
yeah.
correct? So talk to us about that. Talk to us about that transition, being there. How was that?
Yeah, that was also really that was really transformative. So yeah, so like I said, I the way I left Dominica is I started doing a master's in computer science, a joint master's in computer science, and a master's in business administration at the University of Oxford. So you can dive into any part of that you want to, but like post that, I moved down to London with my partner, and yeah, like the first job was at Scape Technologies. So for context, um, the way I got to the UK was on a scholarship, and the
Mm,
scholarship was looking for people who were trying to make a positive impact on the world by applying their skills. And um, and because of that, it was always about the context that you wanted to apply that in. And for me, it was the Caribbean, specifically Dominica. So because I'm just saying this to signal that what contextualized all my time overseas is I actually plan to come back to Dominica from the moment I left, right?
mm,
So because of that, what all of the things I studied at Oxford and all of the job opportunities I sought out post uni, um, they were designed, they were my best attempt to prepare me for what I thought I would need when I came back. So with that context, basically, when I left uni, I I sought out tech startups because I knew I wanted to start a business here, and I knew tech was what I would do. So Scape was a tech startup. So Scape wanted to create an alternative to GPS. So the AI stuff that has really exploded in the last 3 years, that's the commercialization of the AI. But the research breakthroughs for the AI were actually around They were in machine learning, and it was basically the application of neural networks to training computers. And this happened really around 2014, 2015, 2016 when I was in school and when I came out. So Scape was a company that was taking that neural network technology and they wanted to apply it to um, with computer vision to replace GPS. And the way they would do that is with GPS, what you do is you take different signals, and when you triangulate those signals, you know where you are. They were taking a different technique where they would more or less collect images of cities. So they paid people to cycle all throughout London with a 360 video camera on the back of those bikes to collect
Mm.
visual data, and then they would link that visual data with GPS points. And then so with that basis, with that model, if you came and you walked on the same street with your camera up, or if a self-driving car came and they took a frame in with like a camera, they would be able to pinpoint this is the exact point that I'm at without the use of GPS at that point in time. So that was basically the entire product of Scape. Now, to do this, like I said, Skip needed to collect both GPS and video data in any city where it wanted to be able to do that. So they needed to more or less execute a massive project where they paid riders to drive around cities. And what I was doing at Skip is managing, well, I custom built the software to manage that project. So I
Okay.
built a web app, a database, and a mobile app, which is what these drivers would use to start and stop their rides and start and stop their cameras. And then we would link all the data back, you know, what city, what route, what video, what GPS points, and then pass this on um, to the machine learning team that would turn it into a model. So, so all of that stuff is pretty technical. But what did I get from that? I got my first proper high stakes um, software engineering environment. And I feel like that's something that it's almost impossible to get it in Dominica unless you're working in Shopdm, I guess. But it's like, you know, when you're in a startup and, you know, they want to show a certain level of funding before the funding runs out or before the next funding round. And so, you know, this stuff needs to be built, you know, within the first 2 weeks. The language I used to build the technology, I had never even used it before I joined them. But after like the first 3 or 4 weeks, I built that app that the drivers could use when they went around London. You know, so it's like it was a very high stakes environment where you were forced to learn as well
Mm-hmm.
as forced to absorb industry standards. So I'd say that's the other, aside from the software development under pressure, I would say also absorbing industry standards. How is production software managed in the field? How is a professional software engineering team managed? So all these things I was able to absorb them by just being in that environment and being part of that team and having a leadership role on that team. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty much the biggest thing I got from Scape. And then after Scape, whether it was Borisha, which was a much smaller startup, which was just four or five of us, or it's Shopdm, I'm more or less still just applying the lessons and the techniques that I developed while I was there.
So you took those talents
I took
and
this.
then you decided back to Dominica.
Well, well, yeah. I mean, next. Well, yeah. Well, Scape, I went to Borisha, and the reason I took that jump is because I wanted more experience actually leading the startup. Because again, I knew I had to start my own business once I got back here. But after Borisha, yeah, I came back to Dominica, and I've been here since 5 years now.
How easy was that decision? And I mean, I know you said the plan was always to go back, but that's easy to say before you leave. But even being there, how hard was it to leave? I mean, let's be real, leave the money behind,
Leave the
leave
money
the
behind.
first world life behind, and say, I going back to Dominica.
Yeah, it was very hard and very easy. Right?
And was Shop DM in the works from before you left?
Not at all. Not at all. So yeah, so I'll take those in turn. So what made it difficult was like what you said, right? Like it's just, there's a lot of things that are just easier. It's just easier to be in the first world, right? Like systems work, um, the world, the first world, the governments that the governments of the West have configured the world so that a lot of wealth is available in the first world, right? So it's easier to make money. It's more comfortable for you to be there. It's more comfortable for you to. It's more possible for you to to engage in all sorts of different fun activities. Travel is one thing I definitely miss. I
Mm,
traveled, I learned a lot traveling across Europe with my girlfriend, and those things made it difficult because a lot of those things aren't available here. Like variety in food, definitely miss that as well. You like we weren't even living in a big part of London. Like we were living in zone 2 of London, and even then on our street there was a Japanese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, a Lebanese restaurant, like an Indian
yeah.
restaurant, like around the corner, an Ethiopian restaurant. So I definitely miss these things, and I knew I was gonna leave them behind, but I had pretty strong convictions that I wanted to make a change at home. And I'm very tightly tied to my home because this is where my family is, this is where my friends are, and this is the only place I feel like I properly belong. Some other things made it easier to leave, like that belonging bit, right? I didn't have any like racist experiences directed at me while I was in the UK. The UK is a very cool, chill, forward-thinking place, but at the same time, you can feel this weird hierarchy where you are a second-class citizen.
Oh
Like
my God.
everyone kind of like for instance, in the startup office of Scape, they were sharing. They were in a building that was catering to startups, so there were probably 10 startups there, and I don't think of the maybe 150 people there. I don't think more than 2 or 3 other people were black. So it's like,
But not to cut you off, but I mean I was thinking the whole time you were talking, man. When you move to these countries, right, and there's a lot of positives that you talked about, but also, were you ever intimidated? Like, when you walk into a room and like you're the only black person in there, especially not just a black person, but a black person who is not from England, and with a different accent, and
For America.
I, or America, right? And you have to, I mean, you speak very clearly and eloquently, but at the same time, when you speak to somebody, oh, where you from? And like you said, immediately people think you're stupid just because you don't sound like them.
yeah. Well, I will say again, the UK has a very different like racial. Um, I mean, we know the UK's racial history, like its
Mm-mm-mm.
history, colonialism. But as far as British society, um, black British people are in abundance. So I guess before I spoke, people would just assume I was black
You're
British.
black British, right?
But I honestly, like, there's not a single Brit I met, not even in the poshest parts of Oxford, that I could perceive was acting weird towards me, right? Um, what it is it's more the kind of systemic understanding, like, you know so to answer your question directly, no, I didn't really feel intimidated. I mean, I felt intimidated by the idea of Oxford. Oh my god, like top university in the world
Right.
kind of vibes. And it's like I think everybody, regardless of ethnic or whatever, or racial background, there's like people just have no one thinks they're smart enough to get into Oxford. The people in Oxford don't think they're smart enough to get into Oxford because of that image that Oxford has created. So my girlfriend had the same thing. That's where we met. Um,
Mm.
Most of my friends there, you kind of start with this imposter syndrome, and then the work is really difficult.
Mm.
So you do struggle, and then you ask yourself, "Oh my God, like like, am I gonna fail?" But I wouldn't say any of that was relative to me, um, me being from the Caribbean. Um,
Mm.
uh, Post, like, so Oxford is almost like a utopian society. Like, there's the at least the masters, I don't know about the undergrads, but the master's level and PhD level, you have people from all parts of the world. You have people from the US, UK, you have people from India. People from India and Pakistan will have lunch together. People from Israel and
Mm.
Iran will have lunch together. People from, people from conflict zones. People, like, none of that happens there because it's all about, we're all intellectuals. We're all here because you're here because you're very intelligent and I respect you from the beginning. And I think that assumption also, it's something that has stayed with me, and it's part of why I wouldn't have experienced that at Oxford.
Okay.
Post Oxford in London, you're leaving the kind of, university world, everybody happy go lucky, whatever, and you're in the real world. And yeah, like the systems there, again, I was given a card to access that system because I'm like, okay, he came from Oxford, he has two master's degrees from Oxford. So it's like, it's hard for people to project those things onto me. But that doesn't mean that, like, me being in the system, I couldn't see the
Mm.
difficulties, not just against me, but against lots of different groups. And again, the more annoying things would be like when I would be like just going through like an airport or something, and the level of scrutiny that you would get there, and it's
Mm.
like those little things, they add up, or when you go to a country that is less diverse than the UK, like my girlfriend's German, and Germany doesn't have a colonial past, as developed a colonial past as a lot of other parts of Western Europe. So there are less black people there. So you might just stand out more, and
Yeah.
people would just be more curious, and it would be more weird at certain times.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I'd say those things combine to make me feel uncomfortable, but not really make me not feel like not feel good enough. I feel like being from Dominica, where we are first class citizens in our country, I think that is something that is dramatically underappreciated. And I bet you all know because you all can see the difference between yourselves and black Americans, right? Like black Americans, they're born in and they only belong to this system where they are second class citizens. So they're born with a chip on their shoulder. But then when you go over there because you're good enough to get into an American university, um, you come with your confidence and you come with your resources and you come knowing that you're visiting from a place where you 100% belong. So I would
Yeah.
say what that did for me is make me appreciate that a bit more at home. But I was already rooted in my Dominican nest, so it was just annoying, like why do y'all think I'm interested? I'm just another black guy, you
Yeah.
know?
Anthony, they say
Yeah,
age is not experience. And right now, it looked like as if we may need 3, 4, 5 hours to get to everything you've been to and covered. So, let's take it to Shop DM. Let's
shop
talk
them.
about Shop DM now, the star of the show after you,
Okay.
and your baby, your darling, the culmination of it all.
Yeah.
How did
We
it
can.
start? Why did it start? And take us through that. I believe it's the first tech company in Dominica.
There are other tech
So,
companies, but it's definitely the first of its kind. And the
okay.
Mm.
tech product companies, so not like a service like I'm consulting or doing
Hmm.
security stuff. Tech product companies are exceedingly rare here. Um, ShopDM, let me start off with what ShopDM is. And it's wild to tell you, Rajiv, here, but I think I think just last week, me and my business partner and our team member Alan Robin,
Hmm.
I think we really finally settled on what our proper product is, right?
Mm.
So what we do is we provide Caribbean businesses with the tools for them to grow. So that the Caribbean
Caribbean.
part of that is something very specific. So in the Caribbean, the biggest context is that we don't have large populations, right? So you look at the US has 300 million people, right? Like across CARICOM, we have 1.5 million. Dominica has 50,000. And what does that mean for businesses in Dominica? It means that their core challenge from the beginning is getting past the fact that there's only 50,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
The most common thing that every person does is they run multiple businesses rather than one business. So whether that is a taxi company that also does deliveries, um, but also does shopping for you and airport runs and tours when there is a cruise ship, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they might have 5 different lines of business that they combine. And it's not that this won't happen in other parts of the world, but each of those five are equally relevant because of how small the market is. And then if you look at bigger businesses like Jollies um, or Asafans, again, you'll see they're widely differentiated, right? Asafans is into cars, wholesale, um, groceries, etc. So Jollies is the same. They're manufacturing. There's a pharmacy. There's a supermarket. There's a cosmetics. So what does that mean? It means that tools that are set up for a specialized European or American business don't work because it will provide a solution for one out of that person's 5 businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our business has grown to more or less provide a suite of tools. So you'll have one subscription, but you'll have the equivalent of Uber Eats, Uber, PayPal, and access to Amazon all bundled into one.
Into
So
one,
basically,
okay.
we'll give you all the tools to digitize all of your hustles. Essentially, that's what Shopdm is, and that's how our suite of products makes sense. But you will see it closer. I'll go into more detail. So that isn't where we started at all. We started 5 years ago, and we started with one part of our product suite, and that's Shopdm Marketplace. Now, Shopdm Marketplace came out at a specific time to solve a specific problem. It came out in mid 2020 because that's
So we
when
know that time.
COVID was spreading across the world, right? Um,
Hashtag never forget.
Never forget. And no, we were not getting infections in Dominica, but they were already stay-at-home mandates. So what that meant is there were all these things you needed to do in town, but you couldn't go to town because you had to stay at home. And one of the most frequent one was getting your groceries. So that's how ShopDM started. We could see in other parts of the world that e-commerce was solving that problem of how do I get what I need without being able to leave my home because of a stay-at-home mandate. And what we did is we built a tool that was based on Amazon to um, to allow people to merchants could list their products online and shoppers could search through all of those products, add them to their carts, pay with a card, and get it delivered to their home. So if you want, you can throw up the Shopdm Marketplace stuff on the screen, but essentially that's been our bread and butter that we've been running for um, for 5 years, and it's been our main product for almost 4 years. Um, so in the midst of this journey, there were two. Should I just keep going on?
Yeah,
I want
man.
to ask a question before.
Okay. I had.
Right.
Well, pause there.
So in that time, I mean, you said it came about at a time when it was necessary. Is that something that you guys wrote from the ground up during that time? Like, how long did that take you? Because you wanted
Absolutely.
it up and running.
I think I wrote the first lines of code. Everything in ShopDM, everything in every single one of our tools is custom built by myself, largely more than 95 or 98% of the code is written by me. And all of it is built right here in Dominica in response to the problems and response to the actual talking to the clients, talking to the buyers, seeing what they need, changing the software to reflect that. I wrote the first lines of code around April 2020, and we released ShopDM to the public around August 2020. So it took 4 months to get the first minimum viable product out. And basically, the development has never stopped. I've been developing full time on that since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how,
Wow.
how, how many, you know, How many people are working with you on that?
It's three of us. It's myself who handles largely the technology and contributes to the strategy. Then it's my business partner Gandhi Robin. He handles the partnerships and the sales and contributes to the strategy as well. And Alan Robin is his brother. He's been our first employee and he's a really important team member. Um, he manages the partnerships. He helps manage the partnerships, and currently he focuses on managing the day-to-day operations of Shopdm. So the product is in a point where he manages that site you looked at. Basically, he does the human elements behind it, while Danny and myself have been focusing on Shopdm Pay for almost exclusively for the last like year, 9 months. Yeah.
So before we get to Shop DMP, Shop DM, the marketplace. Well, I guess that's all. It's all in one. You know, you've been able to have businesses make in 5 years 1.7 million EC roughly in online sales.
Yeah.
How you feel about that, and how do you think that this online business has kind of transformed business in general in Dominica?
Man, I'm really proud of that. Right, like we are
Mhm.
nowhere near where we want to be. It's been 5 years and 1.7 million over that, right? But but I focus on everything. I focus on the small wins, and I know what this journey has been, right? And ultimately, the whole reason I came back, like I said a while back, was because I wanted to impact my community. And I know that $1.7 million has gone into different, like about two, three, 400 businesses' pockets
Yep.
because of that decision to come back home. So I can quantify the impact, right? And that's the thing, like it gives me a lot of joy. Now, here's the best thing about the 1.7 million. The first year, we processed about less than $5,000 because no one was using the software. We had lots of it. The second year, we processed maybe about $20,000. The third year, we processed maybe about 60 or $70,000.
Hmm.
The fourth year, we processed maybe about um, yeah, well, no, I think the third year we processed maybe about 100 to $200,000, and the fourth year we processed about 500 or $600,000, right? Like, and over the around the end of last year, we just scraped about 1 million. This
Mhm.
year, we're on track without the stuff that we're aiming to release. We're on track to process over 1 million already. Like the whole seven in the 1.7 million has been this year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Wow.
you can see how it's going, and we just start to grow. Um, Next year, well, you'll see how it goes, but we really believe we're at a point where people are going to understand what this has been the whole time.
So
And it's a damn good thing to be at that point.
so I wanted to see if you could and I mean we could go to the website and do it ourselves, but I guess just from somebody, let's just say I've never been to your site,
Yeah.
right? What just walk me through it. So if I mean we know up here we have what do you call it, Instacart and those type of things, right?
Instacart and
That
DoorDash.
deliver goods, right? DoorDash, all those different things. So your website, at least the Shop DM marketplace, that's basically that, right? Now you said, I guess you could add to that, but I think you said in the Caribbean. So that 1.7 is only in Dominica so far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then I think ultimately your goal is to kind of make this region wide thing, right?
Yes. The thing is, we were pushing that direction a lot, but we didn't really feel the need to until recently. But now that we have, what we've realized is this use case I mentioned where Caribbean businesses do a lot of different businesses. That isn't a Dominican thing. That's an OECS thing. Because every single one of our islands has less than 200,000 people.
Mhm.
So all of the entrepreneurs have the same challenge. And so it makes a lot of sense once we finish solving the problem here for them to solve it in the other islands.
But then I don't want to lose sight of, just for the dumb it down for the people that don't know. You go to the site, you basically, and I'm gonna pull up the site right now as we're
Like
talking.
for the non-tech inclined people who might be still wondering, okay, what I can I use Shopdm to do? Why should I not just walk, go to Roseau, pay my boss?
That's a great question, Rajiv. All right. So let's do this in turn. Each tool in that toolbox I've given you all, it solves different problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I'm a tech entrepreneur. I didn't say software developer. Software developers focus on tech. Entrepreneurs focus on problems. So in response to your question, Rajiv, the problem is that certain people, not everyone, but certain people find it very difficult to walk to Roseau and do the shopping themselves. A quick list of who it might be: anyone who doesn't work in Roseau doesn't have a reason to be in Roseau, right?
Right.
You might, now remember, you might work in Kalibishi, right? Like you could
Right.
be working very far from Roseau. You could and because we do island wide, that's why the island wide delivery is so important. So we ship a lot of stuff to Kalibishi, we ship a lot of stuff to Sufria, we ship a lot of stuff to to the West Coast, etc. Because you can your option in those locations might be a small store that has far less variety than Asafans. So the ability to go quickly click, buy it, and have it brought to you is often cheaper than your alternative of either paying bus there and back or paying gas to drive there and drive back. So that's one thing. The other people who this solves a lot of problems for, people who not just work out of Roseau but work from home. And I keep saying work because the people that it doesn't make sense for are the people who work, at NBD, at just around the corner from the store. Then you just pick it up when you're going home. But unless you
Mm-hmm.
have a reason to actually drive to Roseau and be there from 8 to 4, um, you probably it's probably very convenient for you to use our service. So, so for instance, my partner, she works from home. She consults with clients overseas. So she has no reason to be in town. So she doesn't want to go to town solely to shop,
The shop, right?
right?
Right.
And this is so these are the two types of people. If you work somewhere that isn't Roseau, which could be Portsmouth, right? It can be a very big place, but it's just not Roseau. If you work from home, which means you don't have to leave your house, then the other thing that Shopdm has enabled is another type of remittances. So the same way people have since forever, they've been sending barrels, they've been sending Western Union. Now they can send groceries. When they send you the money on Western Union, they're never just sending you the money, they're sending you the money for something.
Yeah,
And a lot
right,
of the
right.
times that thing is groceries. So you can just add stuff to your cart. You can type in someone's name and their address, and they're gonna get it that day or the next day. So those
Oh
are
wow.
three of the main use cases that have been driving sales on Shopdm. Yeah.
Okay. And then you have the I guess some of the things you shared with us. So you have the order in Perkies,
Yeah,
which is food delivery, right?
yeah, yeah. So basically, to give a little context, between our only product up till last year September was this marketplace, and what we've been doing is building parts of it and trying really hard to make certain things smooth. But along the journey, there were two really key things that we noticed. The first one is that people who didn't sell physical products like groceries or manufactured goods, they they also wanted digitization, right? And the
Mm.
second one is that setting up payments processing in Dominica was extremely difficult. It took us until took us until the end of 2023 to just be able to comfortably accept card payments online, right? So what we did is we basically put this together into a new product called Shopdm Pay. So you don't need to struggle, you don't need to go 3 years to accept payments. Here you are, you can start accepting payments today, just like PayPal. Um, so that's what Shopdm Pay became, and what it's spiraling off into is these sort of in industry specific solutions food, like food solutions, taxi solutions, apartment solutions. So you're taking the payment, but you're taking it within an industry. We add a set of tools on top of that to facilitate your transactions in that industry. And what it turns out to be is maybe you don't that's part of why we're growing so quickly right now. Maybe you do work in Roseau, so you don't need shop their marketplace, but you're probably gonna order lunch, right? So that's where the food stuff comes in. So what we have planned for maybe by the end of next month is we're gonna have way more restaurants available, and we're gonna put them all into another little small marketplace, so it will be very much like Grubhub. And then maybe in the future we for a few other industries. Maybe you wanna, rent some stuff, and you wanna book a rental, and we put all the rentals in our network together, so it's almost like Airbnb, right? So it's like basically that's our current path forward. We're using the fact that we have 300 to 400 merchants across maybe 10 industries, and they're all using us for payment processing, and we're giving them specific tools to like I said, give them the digitization for them to grow. That's what we're doing for those merchants. But here's the exciting thing for just regular people in Dominica. All that convenience I left in London, we're gonna create it here in Dominica, right? So we already created it. Every day we're having people ordering from Perky's, from House of Barbecue, using what you're looking at right now, right? Like so,
Right.
we talking Uber Eats, right? You don't have to leave Dominica because it that Uber Eats anymore,
So,
right?
so what you say that the diaspora running out of reasons not to come back?
Not to come
That's
back.
what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you, right? Like everything that has to do with software, we're going to fix it. No, we cannot fix the hospital. We cannot fix anything. But you might be surprised how much we can fix. Yeah, you might be
Right.
surprised because a lot of the convenience that you'll experience in the UK, in the US, it's you want to plan, you want to go somewhere, someone invites you somewhere, you don't necessarily need to drive. You can just check Google Maps and see when the next bus is. The bus is reliable, the train is reliable. You get there, you get back, there's a schedule, know when. So what that means is reliable transportation. You want to eat, you want a selection of stuff, you want to be able to get it conveniently. A lot of time that means ordering the food, or at least just knowing what's there, what's available. Again, you can solve a lot of that with technology. You want to get from A to B, you don't want to take public transportation, you need a taxi. Bam, you whip out your phone, you use Uber. In Dominica, you might have to guess, you might have to try numbers, you might need to
Yep.
have a number. Tourists wouldn't have any of those things. Bam, we can put it together so it's very available to tourists, to Dominicans, to diasporans. So we are fully intent on creating that convenience in Dominica on one hand. Two, making it so that businesses can make way more money. Like one thing I probably haven't said clearly is all of those problems are stopping tourist money and diaspora money from coming into Dominica. Because the tourists come,
Anthony, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as diaspora, whenever I go home, and my friends, they know that I'm that
Yep.
guy who
I already know
never
what you're
walk
gonna say.
around. He doesn't walk around with cash. And
what
for
else you
me,
say, right? What else you say when you come down?
I stay in Soufriere,
You
but
say,
when I come down, I do not walk around with cash.
it's
And I
fast.
always tell people, listen, if I enter your business and you don't take some digital form of payments, I walk right back out. So it was very refreshing to me when I started seeing those
QR code.
Shopdm pay QR codes.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in knowing what has the reception been from the business owners, and do you find that there's still some opposition, and what is maybe preventing, not to say that you're not doing it, you let us know if you're doing it or not, what is preventing the smaller shopkeepers and whatnot from simply just adopting that technology and getting the business, getting those kinds of payments? Even the gas stations, you have some gas
Mhm.
stations, for whatever reason they still want to be cash only. What has the adoption been like, and how do the business owners feel about it?
The adoption's been good. And honestly, just time.
Time.
Um, like financial technology requires high levels of trust. You're gonna put your card into something. People prefer to deal with very tried and very tested things. I wouldn't I wouldn't bad talk anyone for being a little skittish about something. But as they see it, just like you saw it, as they see it more and more, as they hear businesses saying that they're making more money through it,
Hmm.
go through what we call in entrepreneurship the product adoption curve. So you always start with innovators and early adopters. They make up maybe 10-15% of your markets. Then you have the from the referrals from these innovators, once they have good experiences, the product proliferates to what you call the early majority, which is maybe 40% of the market. Then you have the late majority that come on once people using that, man, that's maybe 30% of the market. And then you have the laggards, the people that maybe still not using WhatsApp. Um, it happens in it happens in every country. It definitely happens in Dominica. But we've absolutely had a lot of uptake. Like I said, we have maybe 100 to 150 merchants using Shopdm Pay. A lot of them are not restaurants, so you wouldn't see a QR code, but they use us for invoicing. So you might, do a digital service for someone in St. Lucia, and you send them an invoice, you take payments, and now that we're building out the industry specific tools, there's more reasons than just payment for people to adoption. So I think you're gonna see over the next 1 2 years, many more stores around us who will have this available. Yeah. Of course, there's
But
also traditional solutions like the card machine. Some people use more banking. So yeah, there's a range of alternatives. It's gonna take the time it takes.
one thing I'm interested in knowing though, with all of that, right? And you guys onboarding more and more businesses to work with you and stuff like that in different industries, like you said. How do you guys manage that, right? In terms of, first of all, you have an expectation of them, and they're gonna have an expectation of you. And how do you guys kind of deal with setting that expectation up front and managing whether or not those businesses are meeting your expectations?
What type of expectation are you talking about?
So for example, if you go to, if I go to the site, and I right now I'm on the site and I say I want to order cookies right now, and I go and I put in an order, and next thing
I
cookies run out of pizza, and my pizza never reach, the kind of
Right,
thing,
right.
the word of mouth can spread fast, right? You say, well, this thing sound good, but every
Shop
time I order
DM,
on cookies,
yes.
it never have cookies, right? So
Pizza,
how do you
yeah.
guys manage that?
That's a really good question. Like, and I thank you for asking it because I feel like it would have been bad if we ended the call without talking about that. So before I started running tech companies, and really before I came back to Dominica, because I hadn't really been in, like, even with Borisha, we were not as far along as we are with Shopdm. I thought that tech companies were all about the tech, but Amazon calls itself a logistics company,
Company,
right?
right?
The the tech is a user interface. It's for you, the buyer. What happens behind the scenes, what consumes a lot of my time, Gandhi's time, and Alan's time, is ensuring that when you use that tech, you have an experience that makes you come back and makes you give a
Mm-hmm.
referral. So how do we do it? For every like we have lots of code written, and we also have lots of contracts written. Every person in our network signs a contract with us. Service level agreements for the delivery agents. They specify things like, and the restaurants, they specify things like you must see an order within 5 minutes. You must prepare an order within 20 minutes. Your worst case time to prepare an order is an hour. If
Mm.
you if you if you do one of these things that breaks the terms of the contract, these will be
Contract,
the
right?
financial penalties. You will pay this fee because you broke the terms of the contract. That's something that we've gotten better at with time. We've been doing it for 5 years and we've gotten way. I wish we were as good as we. If we were as good as we are now at that, like we would be much further along. But we weren't when I started, and with myself and Gandhi started. But behind the tech is just the paint on the
What you
building.
see? Yep.
The
Mm-hmm.
building is those relationships, not just telling people what to do, how we facilitate them, how we foster them, how we vet them, and then how we train them, how we retrain them, because there's a lot of turnover in Dominica. So there's a ton of effort that's happening behind the scenes so that when you order your pizza, you get your pizza. Yeah.
I definitely understand that because in my industry as well, that's something that's huge, right? Especially when you kind of lead in certain things and you're not really the one in the background doing it per se. It takes a lot of trust and
Yeah.
but it sounds good that you guys have contracts in place, especially up here. Like I deal with vendors a lot who do a lot of work for us. And up to yesterday, I was talking to one of the engineers, and we were kind of laughing about some of the vendors and the tricks they try to play. You cut them a PO and they tell you, well, I need this to be able to give you that. So now I'm starting to now figure out where I start building their monetary gain into my contract. So if they don't give me certain thing, they don't get no money. And
Hmm.
and kind of incentivize them to give you things on time and do those different things. So that sounds really good that you guys are doing that, especially in Dominica, because I think a lot of times people think, I think we see, and like you say, we bring in the first world to Dominica, but I think a lot of people see things in the US and the UK, and
And
but
they
there's a
don't know how.
lot of things that go behind
Yeah.
making sure that those things happen,
Yeah.
on time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Good, Roger.
Absolutely.
Anthony, you mentioned a little bit about AI, before, and right now we're in a different age of like technology. How you think, AI, maybe Shopdm, things like that could shape the future in Dominica, in the Caribbean? Do you see, an uptick of maybe businesses like yours? And maybe you can even touch on the fact that when you were at the state college, there was a deficiency in a program like that. Where do you think the potential lies for more businesses, maybe like yours, or businesses that complement yours? Do you think that that's the direction Dominica is heading, or should be heading, or could be heading?
Yeah, I do. Um, yeah. So so I'm wondering which angle to start from. I think I'll start from the end, right? Like where you asked me if I think Dominica should be heading there, can head there, etc. And here's another thing I've learned, and I've actually learned that since I've come back to Dominica. When you see nice things, when you go to the UK and you say, "What boy? I can get Chinese food around the corner," or "That bus running on time, so I don't even need a car." The wildest thing I've learned is that if you see a nice thing, it's because somebody did it. It's not
Hmm.
like there are places that have nice things and there
Yep.
are places that don't have nice things. There are places that persons have chosen to build nice things. And after they build nice things, the nice things are there. So purely by the fact that me and my business partner are very, very hell bent on ensuring that people in Dominica have the exact amount of convenience in buying food, in getting taxis, in whatever it is, and also earning through these routes as we are, and the amount of time we spend every day and the expertise and the money we invest in it every single day today and also every day in the last 5 years, I can tell you we damn sure intend that Dominica is going to be digitized in the next year or two, completely. Because we dare building those nice things. Right? Um, yeah, someone's giving us yeah.
Yeah,
but
man.
but I really mean that and I don't mean it's just me. I absolutely think that we should, and through our actions we will, not just myself and Gandhi and Alan, but another team that takes on the same resolve. Like there are again, there are really good entrepreneurs here. Like Shadi Samuel is an amazing entrepreneur. She was running quick. Some of the people we've partnered with recently, in the cosmetic space. Again, you have people like JD's, like Terry Henry, and these people, they're working day in day out to build those things. So just saying again, because we're here doing this, because people like Peter Ricketts are here, um, we have a VR gaming spot now, and because people like myself and Gandhi and Alan are here, we're gonna have all these apps, and it will happen because we're doing that work. Now, as far as what should we do, and AI specifically, we should digitize in a way, and we're digitizing. Like, this isn't one of the other things that kind of pushed me from the UK and the US is the problems I was solving, even the problems at Skip, I was solving it for rich white people, right? Like, the thing is, Dominicans still have really basic, really painful, hurt you everyday problems.
Issues. Right. Right.
Like there is someone who needs to make an additional $200, $300 a month. I saw this post on Emo News from this woman that was talking about how she was in debt and she was struggling, she couldn't feed her kids and she needed, at the end she was like, it's $250 or something like that. And it's just like, what's $250, right? But within this system, it's so hard to earn 250 EC dollars. So, for instance, one thing we'd like to do is set up the delivery system in Shopdm so that people can plug in with the food deliveries, and maybe we make it available, more available to a tourist. So two tourists spend an additional, whatever, 50
Yeah.
US, and that 50 US and 50 US, it becomes 100 US. It flows to someone and it becomes 270 EC.
Hmm.
Maybe that will solve their problem. So what I'm saying that the digitization absolutely should happen, because in a lot of ways, the digitization can solve a range of our economic problems. When I look at Dominica, I see a big problem that touches a lot of things, which is not enough money flowing into the economy. There's a lot of money flowing out because we import a lot of food, we import a lot of gas, etc. We buy a lot of goods that we produce in other parts of the world. So we get something and the money leaves, right? But there's very little money flowing in, right? The two main ways where we can see digitization making money flow in is tourists, making it easier for tourists to spend their money, and making it easier for diasporans to spend their money. And I can tell you, we are seeing that happening in real time with the work we're doing. And we want to 10, 20, 30 exit so that there's just more money flowing around and it's easier for people to get money. And because of that, like, you can hear me saying that, and you can tell that that's a problem worth solving.
Yeah, man.
That's a problem worth solving. Yeah. As for AI
So,
specifically, it might
uh-huh.
actually surprise you, but I'm not that bullish on AI. Like, I mean,
I
we
was I was gonna ask you that question.
yeah, we use it for like making some, like, the most it's contributed is it's made it easier for me to it's basically expanded our development team a little bit, because now ChatGPT can write some of the code. But right, like what like when people talk about these things in the West, they're not specific, right? AI solves a lot of problems. One of the limitations of AI is it needs interfaces to everything. So it can answer questions if it can pull data from Google, if it has an interface to Google. If it has an interface to a financial marketplace, it can tell you a difference in currencies. But if that financial marketplace doesn't exist, it cannot pull that data.
That
So what I'm
data.
saying is Dominica doesn't have a lot of the, like in my opinion, that isn't where we need to be investing. We still need to be investing in the tech that will enable logistics. We need to invest in collecting data in this and making this process and that process more efficient by using an online form instead of a paper form. And none of these things have anything to do with AI. It's just the same boring database and web technology and mobile technology that we've been building in the tech sector for the last 20 years. Once we have those things, AI will be a nice icing on top of the cake.
To
And
be
AI
used from the database. Yep.
might make it easier for us to get there. But when I think about transformative technologies, I don't think about AI. I don't think about crypto. I'm too busy like solving actual problems to get into the hype.
And Anthony, we could go on for forever. I mean,
Fortnite.
I don't think I was expecting I mean, I was expecting a lot, but there's so much I still didn't know, and I know we've had these conversations in person for many times. Is Shopdm hiring? I don't. It would be remiss of me because maybe there's a young tech guy out there in Dominica right now. Are you guys hiring right now? Doing any
I wish.
internships?
I
Because
wish.
you have a one of a kind business.
I really wish. We still don't make enough money to hire more, but hopefully by mid next year, so that will change. If our plans work out as they are, that should change. Yeah.
Okay. And do you wanna hit off a party question or?
Well, my only question I have for him is I know we talked a little bit about AI and stuff, but for a man that's heavily into tech, I want to know if he thinks the world is going the way of iRobot.
Man, I'll tell you something. I am very worried about the stuff I'm seeing in the US. I can tell you that. Like, I am very worried. That's actually the thing. Like, I think AI is useful for some information management tasks. It's
Mhm.
particularly useful for learning things like that terribly difficult journey I mentioned when I was doing my bachelor's degree, teaching myself everything, very few resources. ChatGPT would have made that so much easier because it would have
Mhm.
just explained things to me. But is that where the biggest impacts of AI are gonna be? Because when I look on the news, I'm hearing about AI, like I'm hearing about you know computer vision being applied to drones to bomb people, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm hearing about AI generating um, indistinguishable um, spoofs of videos. So it's even easier to hijack elections. It's even easier
Yep.
to spread misinformation. So
Yep.
honestly, I kind of wish these guys hadn't done that.
Yep.
But the genie is out of the bottle and it's here now. I think the thing about technology specifically is I think my personal view, I was actually talking about it with my girlfriend this morning. Engineers be need to have moral responsibility, right? Like engineers cannot just make something and then put it out there and say my job was making it. That's what I do.
Making
I'm
it.
a
Yep.
maker, right?
Yep.
Like you can see it in my journey. I could have made things in the UK for the people in the UK, but I was like, I'm from Dominica. Dominica has problems. My moral responsibility is to make things there and solve those problems, right? I think, yeah, like the
Man,
lack of moral responsibility is what gave us the atomic bomb. So I really hope it doesn't go like that with AI. I really, really hope so.
I mean, there wouldn't be, once you have sunshine, you're gonna have rain. So the best you can do is your best and try to make the good outweigh most of the bad or any of the bad.
yeah.
Um, Anthony, what would you like to leave us with? We're gonna give some time to plug in Shop DM. Give us any snippets as to what's coming, what's next. What you want to leave the listeners with before we wrap up?
Yeah. Before I plug Shopdm, I, I'd say, yeah, like, I mean, thanks for having me on here. And, I'm always happy to talk about my journey and that sort of thing. I always like to leave some similar things. So, yeah, here's the first one. There is nothing separating a Caribbean person from a US person, from a British person. They're not smarter than us. They're not more capable than us. I am proof of that. I'm just a Dominican guy, educated at convent prep, educated at grammar school, self-studied. And they hired me to build their stuff. right? Like, and I'm building comparable stuff to what comes out of Silicon Valley here. I love leaving similar things to that because it's just like those things don't get said enough. People don't hear that stuff. It doesn't mean you can leave, you can do whatever you want to do, you can be wherever you want to be, but believe that you are good enough to do pretty much anything you see being done outside. Um, so absolutely want to leave that out to any listeners out there. Um, yeah, I like you can see in my journey, I really think that it's gonna be us that builds up the Caribbean, these small islands, the OECS. I don't think it's gonna be our governments. I have my view on our governments, and there's lots of development that must happen in government rather than the private sector. But there's also lots of development that must happen in the private sector, and I don't see us acknowledging that. And I want to just go in on that a little bit. One of the things the Chinese do really well is their diaspora goes to other parts of the world and then creates markets that flow money back to China.
Not in China,
That
yep.
has made China, in some measures, the richest country in the world, going from a super poor country. Like that happened in our parents' lifetimes. That happened in the last 50 years. When I look at the Caribbean islands, when I look at Dominica, Dominica has 50,000 people on the island and 200,000 people outside. Those 200,000 people, and those 50,000 people should be trading to push money into Dominica so that Dominica gets better, becomes a better place to live, a place with more job opportunities. What might that look like? That might look like if you need to outsource something, an accounting job, a software engineering job, a marketing job, something that can be done overseas, first place to look should be Dominica. If you have a retail space that sells products, could you be selling Be Natural in there? Because every time you sell one of those products, some money flows into Dominica.
Into Dominica, yep.
Once you're in an economic position where you have enough money, what's the first thing they tell you? Don't put your money in the bank, right? You need to be in stocks. You need to be in stocks. You need to be in commodities. But stocks are not a U.S. thing, right? You can put your money into a U.S. company, and that's gonna mean Tesla has more money, or you can put your money into a Dominican company, and that's gonna mean that there's a higher chance that something can be built in Dominica, right? Like so, financing, sales, market making, those are the roles I see for our diaspora. I think the fact that we have such a massive diaspora is a massive strength, and that isn't really tapped into beyond sending barrels and buying event tickets. Um, yeah. So, so those are the things I want to leave. As far as what people can expect with Shopdm, like we don't hide what we're doing here. We are going to digitize every aspect of life in Dominica over the next year, and we are very, very quickly achieving that. Um, you should look out for, like I mentioned on the call, the ability to buy pretty much any food from anywhere in Dominica and have it delivered to you. We want to make that possible this year, very soon this year. Um, we want to make it, we've already made it possible for that annoying problem, Rajiv, you mentioned of, oh, they're not taking cash. That's nonsense. We're in 2025, right? Like, so everywhere should be taking cash, but it's going to take time, especially, there's some alternatives, there's more banking, there's all these things. But we want to make it so there's never a case where a tourist wants to spend their money and that
And they
money,
can and that money can't spend. Yep,
a
I agree.
Dominican account, that money must go into a Dominican account,
Yep.
right? Like, so that's another thing we're working on. We also want to look at different ways to enhance the tourism products, maybe make it easier to find out, what you can do, different things. Like as we get closer to that, I'll give more details on that. But absolutely, the food is one we're working on right now. Part of it is equipping the delivery and the taxi companies. So as a consequence of that, you're also just gonna be able to book a taxi really easily, you know, book a delivery really easily. So you can look out for those three in like the next 3 months. You should be able to order food from anywhere, book a taxi from anywhere, book a from anywhere to anywhere, and book a delivery. Like let's say you just want to send something somewhere, and all of that online with your card. So it doesn't matter if you came from the US, Canada, Australia, China, right?
Just make sure you
Mm.
can order bread too.
Mastiff.
Perhaps. Once it making sense. Yeah.
But so Anthony, I mean, man, listen, I really enjoy this conversation. Um, we've been going for an hour and a half. I don't know if you guys realize that, but anyway, I think one thing that you mentioned earlier that I just want to just talk about just quickly before we close. Um, one of the things that I have noticed, like living out of Dominica, is that greed is really what drives a lot of people, right? And I commend you for having, like you say, moral compass or whatever you want to call it, to say, you know what, I could stay overseas and make more money and do all these things and live nice. I'm sure you could make a lot of money, drive nice cars, buy a nice house, do all these things. But from what I'm hearing from you, you are thinking that there are bigger problems in the world than you know, pursuing those personal goals, right? And sometimes when you think of the billionaires that's in the world and you hear them doing so many things, you're like, you wonder, but how much more money do these people need? You're already the richest man in the world. Like, what else you need?
What else do you need?
And they keep on going and going, like they want more and more and more. And that is something that scares me with that AI thing, right? Because people tend to not use these things to better the world. They tend to use it to make the
Absolutely.
world a worse place, right? So
Absolutely.
I think very importantly, people who have people in government and here in the UK, wherever, need to be in a position where they understand these things, right? Kind of like how you guys understand what it could potentially do. Because a lot of times the people, the regulators, the senators, all these people really don't really have any idea, what the danger of these things are. So they can't even put laws in place to prevent certain things,
Yeah.
right? In time. And by the time they do find out, it's too late. And it's already way past that. But like I said, I want to commend you for that, man. I think you guys are doing great work. Keep it up. Don't be afraid to come back and talk the thing, and we can talk again for another hour and a half. That's never a problem. Because these conversations is, I think, it's stuff that people maybe don't realize that they need to hear, right? So until they hear it, they will know that they need it. So you think keep giving them those type of conversations and make them aware that there are things in Dominica that could make their life easier and help grow the economy as well. So shout out to you guys, to you and your partners at Shopdm, and we wish you guys all the best in the future, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming on, man.
Thank you very much. I mean, can I just tack one last thing onto what you
Yep,
said?
yep, sure.
Right, right.
I so this has all been because of my ties to my community. But I also just want to point out it's not like it's charity, right? Like we think we can become millionaires doing this here and doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just pointing that out because, yeah, like honestly, my long term bet is that I can make a lot more money doing this than just being in the UK writing software for people. It might mean less money today, but way more money tomorrow. And I just say that because I don't want people to think that you have to give up your personal ambitions to develop the country. You might just need to be in a position where you can delay something. But
Right.
like, there's absolutely opportunities here. There's every single there's a lot. We none of us will disagree that there's lots of problems here. And if the problem is painful, there's probably gonna be someone who will pay you to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a gem right there for everybody to close it off. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We had a good viewing throughout the hour and a half, and really engaging. So I think, Anthony, you grab all the people, man. I don't think they're here to watch me and Rajiv. They're tired of seeing us. So, so, so yeah, man. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode. And before we go, everybody stay safe and have a good night.